There it is. Bobby, we are in our first chat session. And I don't know if any of you know this, but we're often called Mama B and Papa B by our grandchildren primarily, and then sometimes the B's. So instead of doctors Bobby and Britton Wood, we're just going to call this a chat time with Mama B and Papa B.
And it's going to be centered, at least today, around the idea that we're all in a pioneer time. This pandemic has led to things that we never expected to have to face. And we're not going across the Rocky Mountains in wagon trains anymore, but it's just as much calling for pioneer ideas as the people who faced a different kind of thing in other days.
Well, none of us in the world have ever experienced such a worldwide pandemic. None of us living have ever experienced that. So we're going to be coming out of this into unknown territory, just like pioneers. And therefore, rather than say, what is the pandemic doing to us? What is it we are going to do because of the pandemic? With that, because we've had this time together, let's build a pioneering mindset.
And so we have three ideas of things that have worked for us during this time.
And that's all we're doing in this kind of chat. We're not going to give you advice. We're going to tell you what we're learning and what's been helpful to us, because we're not experts on this. We are fellow pilgrims, fellow pioneers.
Yes. Well, one thing I've learned is that we have to be flexible. And that included for me learning some new skills that I didn't know. I never heard of Zoom before we picked this up. And yet our whole family has gotten together because
our church has done the same.
Our family,
our marriage enrichment group has done the
That's same. True. And I've learned how to do it, and I've learned how to participate in it.
And you've done it well, Bobby. I'm proud of you on it. But by the way, it's a time to do new things. And I've never in my life had a mustache. So I decided that I'd call this my pandemic mustache, or my Corona mustache.
Yes.
Which I may not have after this, but
well, I've never kissed a man with a mustache before. So I've learned to do that and appreciate it.
I'm encouraged to hear that you hadn't, because this is my first one. So that explains.
Well, one thing that I heard recently about somebody picking up an old idea and appreciating it in a new way was somebody on the radio that talked about how much he enjoyed the fact that the family was having dinner together again.
Yes.
It was something they had done in the past and had let slip. And he really thought.
Well, but there was more to it, wasn't it? That they turned off cell phones, turned off television, and they had to have something to say that would be of interest to the family.
This particular family chose two things. They had to tell the best thing that happened to them during the day and the worst thing that happened to them. And it was a way to make sure that everybody talked, everybody had something to say, everybody was listened to. And he felt that having dinner together was an extremely important benefit of the pandemic. And he would like to keep it even after we're freer.
Yes, that this is a good habit to start. And they've started it during the pandemic.
So being flexible, picking up new skills, or recreating or reinstituting old ones that used to work and you used to like them, but they've slipped over the years, and you can put them back into place and see what makes the family function better and with more understanding and appreciation for each other.
And this has been a time that I've had plans to do many things around the house that all of a sudden I have time to do them. And that makes a lot of difference. So we're probably paying more attention to very small things that we've just let go by the wayside. So that's important.
So having a goal, having a plan, and being flexible about picking up new skills and abandoning those that don't appear to be working.
Right.
That's a real pioneer spirit to try new things. That's American.
One thing that we want to practice in our relationship is the fact that when we are sharing feelings, we turn toward each other, which we're going to do in a minute.
Yes.
With something regarding anger.
Yes, well, let's get right to that.
Well,
that's an important thing.
And the other thing that we would recommend that we find beneficial is when there is a disagreement, that we have a named emphasis or issue that we need to talk about together. We put it in front of us, and as a team, we look at it and we're going to work on it together. We're the team that's designated to work on this, not if you would do better or if I would do better, then we could get, not in between us, but in front of us, and we work on that. But you're talking about. Yes, there
are going to be disagreements. And I hear that during this pandemic, some families really have a lot of them.
In fact, domestic violence is higher than it has been because people without good interaction skills tend to do the same things they did before, which is not as productive as they would want it.
So one thing that has really helped us with the disagreements that are going to come to all honest people is that we have long ago decided on a plan, on a strategy for what we're going to do during a disagreement. There's no use trying to devise a strategy when you're mad, because your emotions, or at least my emotions, are too stirred up to be rational about it. But it would be a good time during some talk time while we're at home more than we used to be, to design some way that the two of you could agree on for a strategy of handling disagreements. It's sort of like rules. You have rules in sports.
Like boundaries. We're going to stay within the boundaries. You know, if you're running with the football, you've got to stay inside the line. Otherwise, you're out of bounds. And so that's a benefit to the relationship. Of course, that's true with children. As they grow, you need to maybe expand the boundaries somewhat. But the fact that there are boundaries, that really helps them stay on the road that you would really like for them to be on.
Well, and I think it's more likely they will have boundaries and stay on that road and handle their own anger and disagreement if they see their parents doing it. I think
that's a great point.
So what do you say are some of the rules that we designed about how we're going to argue, how we're going to disagree?
Well, the first thing I recall that we set up was the fact that we tell each other when we are angry. And we have freedom to do so without blaming the other person. And when we do that, we are saying, I really need to talk more about this anger feeling I'm having because I'm frustrated with it, and therefore I want to tell you about it, and then in time we can talk about it.
And that's a really helpful thing for me. I've heard that the first 30 seconds of an argument determine how it's going to go.
Okay.
And if I can soften, or you can soften how we begin,
yes,
and not blame and not attack,
right,
it helps the outcome be more likely to be productive for both of us.
Well, and if you soften, then I tend to go with you and soften. But if you escalate, I tend to go with you.
Well, I think most of us do that.
That's right.
So getting control of the beginning of the argument by softening whatever you do is beneficial.
Well, I really like the fact, though, that we have freedom to tell each other, I am angry, I am upset, I'm really frustrated about
That
something.
is very helpful to me because I'm the one who can deny, who can avoid, who can withdraw and go away and stew about it.
Okay.
So to acknowledge to myself that I'm angry was a big step in growing up for me.
Okay. And then, go ahead.
The second thing that's been extremely helpful to me is that if it's a good time, we share our feelings about the issue.
Okay, so maybe a time is set aside to talk about.
Well, if I can't do it right then, or it's too hot to do it right then.
Yeah, you're too steamed up.
We set an appointment and we talk not about the issue, but about how we feel about it.
Right.
Because anger is just a secondary feeling.
Right.
And something's driving it.
I'm not angry about being angry.
Right. So we need to get to what is it that's going on within me that makes me angry about this particular thing.
Yes, and our mentors have said, never waste a good conflict. Because behind every conflict is a deep feeling, and who better to share our deep feelings with than the one we love?
Well, and another thing that I've learned about our strategy is that I can't be rational and emotional at the same time. So taking the time to learn about my feelings gives me a way to process them. Right. And then when we finally come together to try to come to some solution, right. I can be rational about it. And we can, as a team, which you were saying earlier, as a team, we've got the issue out here, we've got the feelings listened to and understood.
The issue out here. We got the...
And then we have a chance at getting to the solution.
Right.
And doing this even most of the time is invaluable to children as a model for the anger that they're going to have too with other people.
And certainly during this pandemic, everybody can easily get angry about something. And it's certainly good to have adults model good boundary areas and ways to deal with it. So we hope you will do that. But one of the things that we do that's been beneficial is that we set some things we want to do each day. We do a Bible reading and prayer each day, and we set aside a time for our couple time, and we use possibly one of our books, Marriage for the Everyday or The Marriage Pioneers. We try to put something in front of us that stimulates our conversation about our relationship. You don't grow a relationship without ever talking about the relationship. You've got to keep growing as persons and as relational couple.
And that may be a brand new pioneer idea to a lot of people.
Right.
In that some people tend to think that, well, whatever happens, happens, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can, for example, just drive any way I want to because whatever happens is going to happen. Well, that's nuts. Yeah. That you can create your own
boundaries on driving.
Yes, and you can create the relationship you want, but you've got to have some ideas about what that is and what you can do to get there. Yeah. It's achievable. It's within our reach. Yes. We can all do it.
That's so true.
So, two things we've said. We have to be flexible during this pandemic time. Nobody likes it, but there are things you can learn from it and things that make it bearable.
Yes.
The second thing is everybody's going to have disagreements. This disagreements are highlighted during this particular time of enforcements.
Right.
So to have some rules that you both agree on and keep to not only cuts down on the severity of the disagreements, but the time between them.
Well, or just think of rules as boundaries. These are the guidelines that we want to stay within. And that's beneficial. This chat is just simply to talk with you, and we welcome it. We are thrilled that you've set in on it, and we hope that as we move along each week, once a week, we will have an opportunity to include you in some comments, and we hope that you can do that.
And it's been our pleasure to be with you this morning. We hope good things for all families, and this is a good time with the good old pioneer spirit to learn to understand and appreciate our families better.
Okay. Thank you for being here today.
And good morning.